Hi, friends, and welcome to the Thought Arouser. Years ago, my wife and I lived out in the country across the yard from our landlord who owned a farm in western Nebraska. We were newly married, and our landlord mentioned that now and then I would look down and notice that my gas tank is low. My gauge is on E. If that ever happens, he said, just come over and get a couple gallons out of the tanks here. There's no need to run out of gas between here and town. He said, it's going to happen, so just do that, all right? No charge, won't be keeping track, but if you ever need it, it's there. Well, we were going to go to some friends for Christmas dinner. Our parents lived hundreds of miles away, and I did notice my gas gauge is low. So I went over, and I figured my car gets 30 miles a gallon or so a couple of gallons to get me to and from town, because I know the gas stations are going to be closed on Christmas Day. We hopped in the car and headed for town, and it wasn't but 2 or 3 miles, and the car began to run rough, began to miss a little bit. And the closer we got to town, the worse it was. Fortunately, our friends lived on the close edge of town. We didn't have to go very far. And Dennis was a mechanic, grew up on the farm, and so I asked him about what might be going on. He asked me 2, maybe 3 questions, and he said, I bet you what you did, Phil, is you got the wrong tank out there. I put diesel in your gas tank. Probably. He had 5 gallons in a gas can, so we put that in the car. And he said, it'll run rough for a little bit, but your car is not made to run on diesel. Not the end of the world, but it's going to be inconvenient while this burns off. I was thinking about that as we approach this week. Our topic is your body burning good fuel? Are you giving it good fuel to burn? It's a big area of study. Books are written on it. The most recent one that I read is Dr. Young's The Obesity Code, in which he describes what's happened in our food industry and why many of us look and feel the way we do. So we're going to discuss that this week. The purpose of this is not to take apart and analyze that whole industry. The purpose is to find things that will help us individually and with our families live in such a way that we live longer, thrive while we're here, because God has given us work to do on this planet. And if we are good stewards of this that he's given us, we're going to be in better shape. But here's what I'd like for you to do in the next couple of days. Look back in photo albums that you might have at your house, or look online. Notice pictures from the 1930s and 40s and 50s. And with the exception of people holding cigarettes, which everybody thought was okay for a long, long time, my guess is you're going to find that those people look healthier. They're trimmer, and there are a number of reasons for that, not just the food. A lot of people worked on the farm. They got up, they had a big breakfast. They went out and they worked, and they burned off most of what they put in. But I also want you to think about the ingredients that are in the foods that we consume now. Someone encouraged me several years ago, look at the ingredients on the package when you pick it up. Are there a lot of words there that are hard to pronounce? Chances are those are man-made. If we eat the food that God put on the planet originally, we're probably going to be closer to what he had in mind. And then there's also the thing with, is a tomato today as valuable as a tomato in 1940? Probably not, because of all of the things we're using today to help things grow, to keep weeds and pests away and all the rest. Don't want to get radical on this, but I do want to raise our awareness. Do you see the word bioengineered on the ingredient lists when you're shopping? That should be a flag, because it might not be well-intentioned for the body as God designed it. So we're going to talk about those kinds of things, and we will have varying degrees of awareness and concern within the group. That's okay. I want us to just have the discussion. Am I giving my body good fuel to burn? when you stop to think what it took to create a meal, to put it together. Say, well, let's just go back to Bible times, the first century or thereabouts. Making a meal meant going to the market, buying your food, coming home, preparing it, eating it. I wonder if that happened 3 times a day. Probably not. There's evidence out there that maybe 2 meals a day was more common. And some even suggest that 1 meal a day might have been preferred. So there's a concept today, and I use it, of intermittent fasting, where you put a long period of time between the meals that you eat in the day. We're going to discuss that. Is there a benefit to that? Again, with the idea in mind, I want the temple that God gave me. I wrote a note the other day. I want to be good with the temple that you're leasing me. Okay. How can we make sure that we're giving our bodies good fuel and that we're using it in a way that ultimately brings him honor, because we are healthier, longer, and we're doing it in such a way that it's a testimony to his goodness, his greatness. All right, we'll talk about it. Have a great week.